So this week I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Paul Dunn, the chairman and co-founder of B1G1, and Keith Lesser, who has an accountancy firm down in London, Lesser&Co Accountants. We've recently announced the launch of the GoProposal integration with Zapier. The reason I was so excited to get Keith and Paul together this week is because Keith has used the integration in a really magical way. So when a new client signs a proposal, the Zapier and GoProposal integration will automatically trigger B1G1 to donate some pajamas to children in emergency care in the UK. So in the interview, we talked about everything from the technicalities of the integration right through to how the accounting industry can start to make a real impact on the world. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy.
For those of you who don't know, and Keith, probably better if you say it, but B1G1 is this extraordinary idea that we can turn simple business actions like, for example, doing a proposal, or for example, sending email, you name it, it's whatever that transaction is, we can turn that into changing lives. So for example, you could say, every time you send an email, a child gets access to e-learning that changes the game for them, or a tree gets planted, or whatever it is. And so here right now, there are some 500 plus projects around the world that people like Keith's company can give to. And before GoProposal and Zapier, right, and the integration, you basically had to count, how many emails did we send today, or how many proposals did we do, and then put that into B1G1, and then B1G1, okay, well, this is what you do. But now, as you said, it just automates it thanks to Zapier and thanks to your integration with Zapier. And by the way, B1G1 is now, as we understand it, the only giving application that allows you to do that. So it's pretty cool. And I know, Keith, you were sort of waiting around for a while, weren't you? until it came around.
The key thing for me, I know other GoProposal users use B1G1, I think including Matt, Heather, been using it a while. So I think I actually found out, like a lot of things, I found out about B1G1 from Map or from GoProposal, because you guys are at the cutting edge. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, this looks really good. But that was exactly my concern. I thought, hang on a minute, I've got to go into GoProposal and see how many proposals I've done, or see how many new clients we've got, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But the fact now is Zapier, that's just a complete game changer, because look, who would have done it? Well, probably I wouldn't have done it. One of our team would have done it. But then you think you're not only doing the charity, but you're paying someone to track.
You're doing the work,
the actions, and you kind of go, I don't want to do that. I just want to give the charity. Just want to put all that budget towards the causes. So just kind of left it for a while. We're still looking at it, but yeah, Zapier is obviously that automation. I mean, you still need to go into B1G1 and click the button pay. So I don't think that can be automated at the moment.
Oh no, that was deliberate, Keith. We didn't want to automate the payment, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's like, just imagine, a little glitch or something. So no, I mean, as you know, it just puts it into the cart for you. And so you can always,
but that's perfect. Then all you need to do is click, checkout, pay, done. And, that's great.
I think one of the important words you said, Keith, that I was going to pick up a bit later in the interview, but we'll just bring it forward, is the word budget. So you kind of said we use that bit of our budget to, it's automated to use that to pay for this. I guess a fear of other accountancy firms maybe would be, they might not be super profitable in the first place. And why is it then important to make sure that you have budget for these things? Because I'd imagine, especially like during these crazy difficult times, it could be one of the first things to go and to say, let's not put money into this. But why is it kind of important to you, Keith, that you keep doing that?
You have to look at your purpose at the end of the day. I mean, what's the point of having £1 million in the bank? I mean, like you said, maybe most businesses don't have £1 million in the bank. I'm not saying we have £1 million in the bank, but I'm just saying in general terms, what is the point of capitalism and all this? Is it just to accumulate and just get more and more? I mean, there's got to be a bit more purpose involved, hasn't there? And B1G1, I mean, if everyone just gave a bit, you can imagine the power of it. But I think with all these things, that's the challenge. How do you make it easy for people? and how, you know, that's the thing with this, it's linking in to success. So, you know, how many VAT returns have you done or whatever, and it's all automatic. So, you know, I think there's really is a lot of potential with it.
Nice. And what about you, Paul? So I guess
And
I don't know if as a business, B1G1 itself has seen people maybe worry a bit more about spending that extra money on giving, but I'd argue it's just more important now than ever.
well, I mean, yeah, it depends where you sit, of course, and you would kind of expect me to say yes, but there's more than just a natural yes, and here's what I mean by that. So a couple of things. First of all, you know, we used to think of giving as, you know, it's like people would say, when I'm successful, you know, I'll start giving, because we associate it with, you know, someone with a great big fat check that says, look at what we did. But B1G1 transforms that, because you can give from 1 US cent. What's that? Is that 0.8 of a p or something? I'm not sure what it is, but it's smaller than, you know, that. So just 1 cent, and 1 cent can literally give a child access to life-saving water, literally, or, you know, education, or so many things. As you know, Keith, you know, there are so many things that start from 1 cent. So as a friend of mine says, it's really hard to find excuses now, right, for doing that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we sometimes think, and this is, you know, this is kind of interesting thought, we sometimes think that the beneficiary of the giving is, you know, the kid who got access to, the child who got access to water, or you know, the community that got goats, or that's what we think, right? But what if it was actually us that benefited from that? And I know that sounds like perverse and stuff, and, you know, that's like, you know, you got to think weirdly to think that way. But I can tell you this, that the feedback, we used to think that B1G1 was all about this really elegant, smart way of giving. Right? That's what we used to think, and it is about that, right? But when we did surveys, you know, the kind of things that GoProposal does, for example, and we said, okay, what are the things that you say to other people when you talk about B1G1? And we had, I remember, we had one of those word clouds, you know, which people would say, and it just sort of built the word cloud. And the word cloud, the big word was transform. And we're like, really? And then we would ask, well, so why is that? And I think it's what Keith was referring to a minute ago. And people said, well, what actually happens when you do that, and you do that consistently, it shifts the spirit in the firm, shifts that spirit. And when you shift that spirit, that shows itself. And I know that's not a thing that accountants talk about, right? But it is reality. It really is. And so, you know, we, meaning, you know, the accounting firm, when you lock in, you see benefit. And the same is true for your clients as well. And in fact, interestingly, there's a new report from the AICPA, as in the largest, you know, accounting association or professional body in the world, which says exactly that. It's a new report which is called Human Signals from the AICPA. It's well worth reading, and it talks about how now, this time right now, is a defining moment for the profession. And I absolutely think that's true. It is a defining moment. And how we need to take account of, as accountants, right, who fundamentally change the lives of business owners and their teams. That's what accountants do, right? And when we get that, and then we look at all of the tools that we have to enable us to do that better, then you go, oh, this really is a defining moment, okay? And anyway, so what that particular report ends up saying is precisely what we just said. And so here you've got this really interesting thing of the largest accounting profession in the world saying to its members, you should consider this. I never thought I would live to see that day. And that talks about, I think, the rapid acceleration of what Keith was talking about a little while ago, of meaning and purpose and those sorts of things. It's been a rapid acceleration. I mean, we've always known that was happening, but I think COVID, wouldn't you agree, Keith? COVID has just sort of shown it in spades that that's the way we need to move.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a confidence aspect as well. Having worked with GoProposal for 18 months, I think, GoProposal is transformational. So I think there's a sweet spot. I think there's a sweet spot here because, GoProposal members, I would think, are generally going to be more successful accountancy practices, thinking about technology as well. I mean, you only have to spend 20 minutes with James and you're probably doubling your profits, so.
Something I'd love to talk about, Keith, for you. So obviously, Lesser&Co are growing and you just doing some fantastic things. Like, I've not worked with you huge amounts, but from what I've seen, you're always like super on the ball, forward thinking, like getting all your company to go through the academy and things like that, and just put a lot of importance on training. And I'd love to know how Lesser&Co has seen this impact your staff and maybe impact your clients as well.
With B1G1, yeah, well, it's still kind of early days, I suppose, for us. But
yeah,
I think you alluded to it, Paul. It's also this aspect where you can't ignore the marketing aspect of it as well. You're doing it for the causes, but you're also saying to your clients, look, I have said it to clients already. I said, look, we're giving $10 for every new client or whatever, and the employees, the team knows. So that's getting engagement. I mean, we've got Microsoft Teams channels, and we're going to be zapping stuff around there. So we've got like a GoProposal sign up, zaps it to Microsoft Teams. Then we've got a good news channel, and then it's going to be, this is this month's B1G1. So
nice.
Just that engagement, and then obviously clients are going to be thinking more of you, I suppose, because you're involved in this sort of thing.
Have you had any feedback yet from that?
Clients? Just generally positive. I mean, I think B1G1 is a very personal thing, isn't it? I mean, I'm vegan, so I was looking at causes which would fit with my values, So, for example, I'm going into B1G1 where it says nutritious meal. I'd be thinking, oh, well, is that a load of meat? And in my head, that's maybe an unhealthy, could be an unhealthy meal, but it wasn't clear. I don't know if it's meat or not. Maybe that.
It's not actually.
Oh, it's not. Well, there you go. I'll get on the nutritious meal bandwagon, but it's that sort of thing. It's a personal choice. So obviously, then when you're speaking with clients who have the same values as you can articulate that for those causes, because it's just when you've got an accountancy firm, that's what you're trying to do. Clients are buying into you basically and what your values are. So.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing lots of firms now, Keith, that are saying things. It was a very simple thing to say, like in your case, when you deal with Lesser&Co, something great happens every time. And that's just a beautiful line, right? It's just a beautiful line. But the interesting thing is, it's not a line. It's not a line, right? That's actually what happens. So, yeah. And I think you would see clients sort of, again, clients don't jump up and down and say, yay, right? But there's lots of stuff going on, as and you guys know GoProposal as well, that talks about how, purpose-driven companies are growing 100% more than the ones without purpose. They're talking about, Keith, you may see this in your firm, where the studies show that people who have what you've got, they find that team members, first of all, they stay 3 times longer, right? The good ones, and secondly, they're twice as productive. They're twice as productive, and it comes back to that kind of spirit that goes on from the purpose-led or meaningful kind of things that's going on at the firm. So again, it's much more than what we actually think it is.
Yeah, I mean I mean we're super busy, right? So I've made the time for this call, and you know, it's uplifting just being here. Do you know what I mean? So just having this experience, I'm sure I'll have a really good rest of the day now. But I was just going to add as well, Paul, the interesting thing with Zapier. So Zapier's got a membership fee, but you get 100 Zaps free. So I think that's something you can really push, because I mean, even the most successful accountancy firms, you know, they're not necessarily getting 100 new clients a month, but the fact that you've got that, you know, we're talking about budget. So, you know, from my point of view, it's B1G1 membership giving, and I'm trying to keep Zapier at the moment. If we can get to that level where we've got all these fantastic Zaps and it's adding all this value, but I'm starting off in the free package, because it's kind of, you know, GoProposal and B1G1 was the first Zap we did, and we're quite big on the Microsoft suite, so you can do some Microsoft integrations as well, so that can cut down your Zaps. So this is the kind of initial thing for me, and then obviously having a new client is a really great thing that GoProposal enables. You know, that's why I'm playing with the whole, do we trigger the, because it's in Calendly, for example, is on Zapier. So could I do it? Oh, every time someone books a meeting with me, we do something, or you know, QuickBooks Zero every time you submit a VAT return. So that's the sort of thing I'm looking at as a phase 2 alongside the GoProposal with Zapier and B1G1. But I just want to ideally keep below that 100, because otherwise you go, well, right now I'm paying the Zapier. Did I say it right? Zapier.
Zapier,
Now I'm paying the Zapier membership fee. Okay, but it depends what else you want to do. Obviously, if you're doing loads and loads of other stuff, which is possible, that's great. But if you're starting with B1G1 and Zapier, then you know, ideally you want to be in that 100 Zaps.
And how are you? So sorry, kid. Just to go back to basics. So you guys, when you get a proposal accepted, that's when you trigger in the. And do you have a particular cause that you go for, or is it different?
Well, it's set up at the moment with the I think it's pajamas to children in emergency care, but it was just the right kind of value. I think it's about $10. So we've just kicked off with that, but this is, you know, this is something we're going to run with. And I mean, I know lots of other GoProposal members, I think I mentioned it already, use B1G1, but you know, with the Zapier integration, I think it's going to be a lot more attractive. I mean, we had the Facebook thread, there were a lot of comments. And actually what was quite exciting, Paul, I don't know if you know this, a lot of accountancy firms who already use you guys, they came back and they said, oh, I didn't know.
That's right. That's right. That was when we saw your Facebook post. Like, oh my goodness! Because I remember when a year ago, you know, the team sort of presented, and said, "Hey, look at what we can do." I remember sitting in the days when we were in the office, and I remember going, oh my goodness, this is game changing, right? This is game changing. And so we did this little video, and I don't know what it was about the video, but maybe people didn't watch it because, but you know, it was a beautiful little video, but it just goes to show the power of social media and the power of testimonials. Because when we say it, maybe they don't listen, but when you listen as a practicing accountant, and you go, this is what happens. I mean, we do have a lot of people doing it, but it's just that it didn't get out. And what you did together with James and the guys, just, you know, you unlocked it. And as a result, lots of people are going to benefit. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, James has got a bigger following than me, obviously, but I think with the with the GoProposal Facebook group, what you've got is, you know, you've got a fantastic community there. So, you know, people really switched on in that community, and yeah, it's just lots of engagement. And I think there's lots of accountancy firms, you know, that would really engage with that and say, yeah, new proposal signed, I'm going to give to whatever I'm going to give, and that's zero touch, really.
Yeah. So, just I guess to kind of round this all off, what would be amazing is to hear how, maybe Paul go first and then Keith, but just how you see this evolving. So as we touched on, like this is a game-changing time for accountancy firms. It's going to make or break a lot of firms, I think, and there's also just a lot of exciting things going on with how they can show their value to clients and just show how
Yes.
really important they are. How do you see this playing out, Paul? So how do you kind of see the future of accountancy firms helping to do good in the world?
Oh, well, let me let me quote you from a guy who's been in the top 10 of influencers in the profession. This is a guy called Tom Hood since 1996, right? And he's never gone out of the top 10. And he's the development director at one of the really kind of up there accounting associations in the US called the Massachusetts Society. And Tom came out and said it beautifully, something I mentioned earlier on. He said, you know, when you look at it, this, you know, he said this, he said, businesses need us more than ever right now. Right? And you know, that I think was a challenge for accountants to realize that, you know, that we've always said, I mean, I've always been saying it, that they really do. And now COVID has shown that, right, to be absolutely true. And, you know, you can count, accountants listening to us now can count, I imagine, people who they have been regularly been in contact with, who, because they've been regularly in contact with, and because they haven't, you know, for so long, what I think we've done in accounting is we've thought of it as this transactional, you know, like, oh, client says, could you give me a set of accounts, right? And we go, oh, client says that, oh, here's the set of accounts, as opposed to, oh, here's the set of accounts, and maybe we should just take some time to talk about the impact of all of that. It's just a simple sentence. But that simple sentence, without any doubt, has protected people through COVID and protected their businesses. And so, you know, when Tom Hood said, this is a defining moment for the profession, I think he was absolutely correct. And my hope is that in all of this, that accountants finally get, I mean, really get it, that, you know, if you're listening to us now as an accountant, I'd love you to write up on your mirror, I change lives, because that's actually what you do. You do. And, you know, if MasterCard were promoting you, they would say that is priceless. And it really is. It really is, right? And so what I think, Heather, is that, you know, we're getting now more switched on so that we can, you know, with GoProposal, with Zapier integrations, with all of those sorts of things, so that we can concentrate more and more on the humanness of what we do. And we can translate those numbers into, you know, good things for humanity. And when we do that, it changes everything.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. And how about you, Keith? Kind of where do you see like the future of this, starting with this integration, but I guess it can just snowball into something way bigger. So how do you see the future of accountants sort of giving back and doing good?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? Because we've been firefighting quite a lot with Rishi's chucking stuff at us every week, and it's like, you know, 19 times increased workload or whatever they reckon. But I think, you know, without being too conspiracy theorist, you've got to look at it and say, in 20 years, you know, are we going to have a planet? And unless everyone just kind of wakes up and has this sustainability mindset and this purpose around, like you're saying, Paul, about around being human and so on, unless everyone's buying into that, you know, you've got to, without wanting to be too depressing, you've got to say, well, what does the future hold, really? So, you know, it's imperative that everyone buys into this type of mindset and cause.
Yeah.
It is. In fact, Heather, let me just find it so that we get it. And I think it's really important. Here's what the AICPA report, which is that human signal thing. They said two things, which I seriously never thought I would hear a professional body. Now, bear in mind, this is the professional body, not some, sort of marketing person saying this. And in the final section of the report, and by the way, Heather, it's okay. I think you've probably got the report anyway, but I'll send it to you so that if people would like to grab the report, they can do that. But there are two conclusions that they make. And again, this is advice that the professional body is giving to accountants in public practice. Listen to these two things. One, communicate on, we have to, they say, communicate on how your service is delivering on the wider goals of humanity. That's nice. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And then the other part of it is go further into purpose-centered design, not client-centered, but purpose-centered design, and consider how your services can be designed for communities and society as a whole. And I think that's the kind of thing that Keith is expressing. And I think more and more we will begin to understand that. And thanks to GoProposal, and thanks to Zapier, and thanks to people like Keith who, blaze a trail in all of this, I think the profession is going to get that that's easier to do than ever. And so we just should step up and do it.
I agree.
From my point of view, I think, first of all, congratulations to Keith for, just recognizing it there and being, opening a bit of a floodgate as a result of that. And also, over the years, now I think about 3 years, James has been out there, sort of saying, well, first of all, doing it in GoProposal, which is kind of nice. So walking the talk, as it were, which is really, really good. And, just having this time together now, the more that we have these conversations in the profession, the more the profession gets it. So I'm just very grateful that I was able to be here with you. So thank you for creating the opportunity.
Yeah, no, same. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.